So there's 107 now Democrats who are calling for impeachment. We have members of the House leadership team. Catherine Clark, I think she's like number 6 in the leadership team. We have number 3 in the Senate. Patty Murray now has called for impeachment. Senate's pretty important because I'm starting to think that part of the dynamic is that Nancy Pelosi is not 100% sure that she can get even 90% of the Democratic caucus in the Senate to vote with them for impeachment. The issue here is not whether Donald Trump will leave office. There was only one way he will leave office. That is if he is electorally defeated. The issue then becomes, what will enhance that? Well, let me start with this. The first bar that must be crossed is a civic one. Is it the civically ethical thing to do to impeach Donald Trump? And based upon Mueller's testimony, but even without Mueller's testimony that the president obstructed justice on multiple occasions, criminally obstructed justice, it's quite evident that he did. Aside from that, there's a whole host of other things that I think from an emoluments issues to the way that they have been refusing to provide information on a whole host of things, including the census documents. And then I think just general behavior. You don't need to have a criminal charge to impeach. So there's plenty of reason to impeach. Once you get past that question and deem whether it is practically, does it make sense, knowing that the Senate will not vote to convict? The answer from my perspective is yes. 1, from an electoral standpoint, in terms of the president. 2, from an electoral standpoint, in terms of taking back the Senate. You make all these senators come out and say, I will not vote for impeachment against Donald Trump. In that instance, you got to make sure that you have the Democrats in the Senate because you want to force Mitch McConnell to have a vote, and he'll only do so if he thinks he can peel off some Democrats to give himself some cover. Otherwise, he won't have a vote, and then they pay for it. And 3, the other reason is because it's now July, and let's say it's August 1st. We still have 13, 14 months before the election. And if the Democrats are done with their messaging bills, what it appears that they are, I don't know what else they're going to pass if they're not willing to pass Medicare for all. They've passed 60 things, many of them very good. Hopefully they get actually, they'll vote for them when they can actually get them signed. But the Democrats need to do something. Because if they do not, they are creating a vacuum, not just in terms of legislatively in the House, but in terms of a narrative that the American public and the press can chew on. And if you think they'll only chew on the race, then I suggest you go back to 2015 and 2016 and Google the words email server. And you will see that they can do scandals as well. And so the reason why you have impeachment, or one of them, is to fill that vacuum. Because if you don't fill it, the Republicans will. And what will they fill it with? Well, Donald Trump's new chief of the Directorate of National Intelligence. And I don't know, is that a Senate confirmed seat? Because people are referring to him as the new one. I don't know if he's confirmed, but of course they don't have any, they'll have an acting person there for 3 or 4 months. That's all you need. This guy is going to be out there, and he is already related to Donald Trump. My number one job, to make sure that any of this stuff that's rattling around in the intelligence community never gets out.
Back now with Republican Congressman from Texas, John Ratcliffe, sits on the House Intel Committee as well as Judiciary and Homeland Security. And Congressman, let me ask you about where the wrongdoing was specifically. You have John Durham looking at this, origins of the Russia investigation. You have William Barr. You have Senator Lindsey Graham, and you have the IG report. Tell us what they're going to find. Where was the wrongdoing?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is make sure we don't do what the Democrats have done. They accuse Donald Trump of a crime, and then they try and reverse engineer a process to justify that accusation. So I'm not going to accuse any specific person of any specific crime. I just want there to be a fair process to get there. What I do know as a former federal prosecutor is it does appear that there were crimes committed during the Obama administration. You talked earlier about...
I just want to just show you the genius of this way the guy's talking. I'm not going to accuse anybody of a crime. I'm not going to say that there was a crime committed. But there was, in fact, a crime committed, and it was in the Obama administration, so it was definitely Obama people, it was Democrats. And I'm not going to say anything specific that can be disproven, but I'm going to say stuff that can be out there and sort of snowball. I don't know if the words Benghazi mean anything to you, but go ahead.
The Obama administration. You talked earlier about Michael Flynn. His phone call with the Russian ambassador was a highly classified NSA intercept. Someone in the Obama administration leaked that call to the Washington Post. That's a felony. Glenn Simpson from Fusion GPS, in talking about the Steele dossier, said under oath that he and Bruce Orr did not meet until after the election. Bruce Orr said under oath that they met 3 months before the election. One of them is not telling the truth. We need a process to identify that. Where it all started, Jim Comey, he admitted that he leaked his confidential conversations with the president to a reporter. Did that include classified information? We need a fair process to find out answers to that. I trust, because Bill Barr has earned my trust already and the trust of the American people, that there'll be a fair process with John Durham and with Michael Horowitz to get answers to that and provide accountability where it really belongs.
I just want to remind you that Bill Barr blatantly, unequivocally lied about what was in the Mueller investigation before it was released. Blatantly, unequivocally. We now know the reason Mueller did not bring obstruction charges was because of the OLC memo that prevented them. Bill Barr blatantly lied about that. He blatantly lied about it exonerating Trump. He blatantly lied about all of it. And he lied knowing that the document was going to come out, at least the non-redacted parts, which just shows you how bold of a liar he is and how much he thinks he can get away with, because he got away with it. For the most part, in terms of Mueller's testimony, the reaction was there's not enough of a smoking gun here. It was all a function of what Bill Barr did. And maybe some general sort of just cynicism that there was nothing new here. Over 10% of the Democratic caucus changed their mind in terms of impeachment within days, including one leadership member. In the House, the number 3 Democrat in the Senate came out. It was quite obvious. It was quite obvious that that was an impeachment referral around repeated obstruction. And that he's quite convinced he could have gotten more, but for whatever reason was constrained by his own sense of like what he should be doing. So Bill Barr is a huge liar, and their willingness to do anything, I think, is people should be prepared for it, and which is why you need to have the Democrats so that that segment is not, hey, Ratcliffe, here, let's see your portfolio. Can you please tell us everywhere you're going to go with your investigative power and how you're going to back up Bill Barr instead of dealing the Director of National Intelligence? That segment should all be about how horrible and what kind of witch hunt the Democrats are on. We want to put them on the defensive. It's just politics 101. Nancy Pelosi's blowing it. Chuck Schumer has blown it way out of smithereens. I mean, there's a good piece by Charlie Pierce in Esquire about Chuck Schumer blowing it on this budget deal, where Chuck Schumer basically said, hey, you know this thing that could be a huge obstacle to getting your agenda across, the debt ceiling limit? We're going to take that off your table for the next 2 years. So your presidency is going to be debt ceiling controversy free. Congratulations.
Now, down to business.
But
Invisalign.
But instead of saying we will give you a debt ceiling controversy free presidential run until your next term, but we're going to take it off the table forever. You get everybody to sign on to legislation that we no longer have a vote on the debt ceiling. The vote on the debt ceiling is already embedded in our voting on the budget. And instead of saying that, he said, you're going to get this controversy free for the next 2 years. And the only person who's going to deal with it is either you in your first year of your reelection or a Democrat, right? Like, you're either an idiot or you want to make sure that the next Democratic president is constrained. One of those two things is the only explanation for this. You're an idiot or you're specifically trying to constrain the next Democratic president. Both can be true. But there's absolutely zero reason why you would make the deal that Chuck Schumer made unless you're an idiot and or you're just trying to constrain the next Democratic president.